Thank you very much, Anna and Andrew and all the leadership team for this opportunity. Really glad to be here. My name is Bassel Daher, and I'm an assistant research scientist at Texas A&M Energy Institute, Texas A&M University, and I'm glad to be here to share with you some lessons learned from our stakeholder engagement activity in San Antonio as part of this project we've been working on for the past several years. First, as part of Texas A&M state system funded initiative, the Texas A&M Energy Water Energy Food Nexus Initiative, which later got supported by NSF, and we've been working on this region as an interdisciplinary team with a group of different modeling groups, as well as looking at the governance, financing aspects of the different challenges that face the region, and doing that with continuous stakeholder engagement through different methods and different stages of the project, from conducting surveys to workshops to focus group meetings. But just to take a quick second to just tell you a bit of the reason we're working on San Antonio and what motivated the study to start with. So the map on the top right represents Region L, which is one of 16 water planning regions, which is home to San Antonio, one of the most rapidly urbanizing cities in Texas and in the US. It's also home to the Eagle Ford Shale, where a lot of the energy development and hydraulic fracturing activity happens, as well as the Winter Garden area, which is where a lot of the agricultural activity happens surrounding the growing city. And all the dots you see on this map are actually water wells. The blue dots are water wells for municipal use. The green dots are water wells for irrigation, for agriculture, and the red dots are water wells for energy development. And with the projected growth of these sectors over the coming decades, we can easily and quickly see the level of growing competition and potential growing competition between these sectors. So the question we ask at the beginning of this project is, we know that these trends show us some potential competition as we look into the future, but how much do we know about the level of communication between these stakeholders across these sectors? So our initial engagement with the stakeholders, or one of the earlier engagement methods with the stakeholder, was through conducting a survey to develop that benchmark, to develop that initial understanding of the level of communication. And so we surveyed more than 100 water public officials in San Antonio. We identified water, energy, food stakeholders across public, private sector and civil society organizations. And we asked them about the frequency of communication in the past year with other water, energy, food stakeholders and other cross-cutting stakeholders with more cross-cutting mandate, like the mayor's office, for example. And what we learned is that more than 90%, or about 90% of those who responded, showed no communication with any of the stakeholders that we had in the list. Out of the 10% that showed some level of communication, we can see that a lot of that communication has been focused between water and other water sector officials, and less so between water and energy and food stakeholders. So following that survey, and after we did some preliminary analysis of the survey results, we went to a stakeholder engagement workshop in San Antonio, where we brought together all of these stakeholders, first to share with them some of the initial motivation and modeling that we started working on, and showcasing some of the capabilities that we have to answer some of the questions, but also asking them whether we are asking the right questions to start with. We do have the modeling capabilities, but we want to make sure that we are actually answering the right questions that are of interest to our stakeholders. So that was one of the key questions we asked at the stakeholder engagement meeting. The other one was, after sharing the results of this survey that I shared with you, and given that potential and growing competition between the three sectors, why is that level of communication this low? What are these barriers? And what we learned from the stakeholder engagement workshop was that some of these barriers were not necessarily about the lack of knowledge about the importance to work across different sectors, but there were more structural barriers, like the lack of legal and procedural or institutional mechanisms that allow for that coordination to happen. So I could know better about the need to coordinate and work across different sectors, but I do not have the coordination mechanisms to do that within the mandate of my institution. The financial barriers, who will pay for that time and effort to pursue that increased level of communication. Uniformity of language was another, where you have people across different sectors speaking different languages and having that challenge of communicating across different sectors. Differences in planning horizons. We see the water sector, for example, developing a 5-year water plan, while with the energy sector, we're talking about longer term 2050 goals with net zero goals and such. So that also creates some barrier for creating some common goals within the same time frame, among others, including competition and issues related to confidentiality when we're talking about integrating data and sharing data, in addition to the lack of common goals and collaborative projects. I can say that through working on this project for the past several years now, about 4 or 5 years, in terms of engaging with stakeholders, we had different methods of engaging, and it's been an iterative process, especially through COVID, when we had to adjust our stakeholder engagement process several times to move a lot of the interaction to remote interaction, especially when it comes to the focus group meetings. So it is an iterative process. It requires multiple methods of engagement, including surveys, workshops, focus group meetings, but also multiple modes of communication. We also, as part of our engagement, have developed short videos, for example, simplifying and explaining the scenarios that we're developing and kind of the modeling activity. We have also made sure to translate a lot of the outcomes of the research articles that we have developed into communication briefs that were shared widely with our stakeholder groups to simplify those key messages that we're working on. Another key lesson learned was the importance of investing time and effort in building those genuine, honest, one-on-one relations with key stakeholders in the region, and this becomes really of importance, especially when you're looking for feedback, honest feedback on from focus groups that represent different sectors, and yeah, building those relations doesn't happen over time, so it needs a genuine investment of time and effort into that. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of the early stakeholder engagement, starting that process early on in order to co-create and co-develop those questions that are of interest to stakeholders, so we don't end up developing research that is ultimately not used. So I'd like to stop here and be happy to share any to answer any questions. Thank you.